Commander Vexthala stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the blue and green planet slowly rotate on the main screen. The sight filled her with excitement. In all her years serving the Zephyrian Empire, she had never seen such a perfect world for resource extraction. "Commander, the scans are complete," reported her science officer, his forearms working quickly across the control panels. "This planet has everything we need. Water covers most of the surface. The air is perfect for breathing. And look at these mineral readings." Vexthala studied the data flowing across her screen. Her eyes widened with each new discovery. Rare metals existed in huge amounts deep underground. Precious crystals that powered their ships lay waiting in the planet's crust. This single world could supply the Empire for thousands of years. "What about the native life forms?" she asked. "Primitive creatures called humans," the science officer replied. "They have basic technology, simple rockets that barely reach their own moon. They communicate using radio waves. Their civilization is broken into many small groups that fight each other constantly." Vexthala nodded. This was even better than expected. A divided species would be easy to control. The Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but never one with so many resources and such weak defenders. "Military assessment?" she asked her weapons officer. "Negligible threat, Commander. They have chemical explosives and primitive projectile weapons. No energy shields. No faster than light travel. Our standard extraction protocols should work perfectly here." Far below on the planet's surface, Captain Sarah Chen floated inside the International Space Station, checking the long-range sensors for the third time that day. Something was wrong with the readings. Large objects were moving at the edge of the solar system, but they didn't match any known spacecraft or asteroids. She adjusted the sensor settings and waited. The objects were definitely artificial. They moved in formation, changing course in ways that natural objects never could. Her heart began beating faster as she realized what she was seeing. "Houston, this is ISS. We have multiple unknown contacts approaching the inner solar system. Repeat, unknown objects inbound to Earth." The response from ground control was delayed and confused. "ISS, please confirm your readings. Are you sure these aren't equipment malfunctions?" Sarah checked her instruments again. The objects were getting closer and bigger. Much bigger. "Houston, these contacts are massive. Each one is larger than a city. They're definitely not from Earth." While Sarah tried to convince ground control that aliens were real, Commander Vexthala prepared her fleet for the next phase. The Zephyrian ships dropped their stealth fields and appeared directly above Earth's major cities. Massive vessels, each 1 kilometers long, cast shadows over New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow. Panic spread across the planet as humans looked up to see impossible ships hanging in their skies. News broadcasts tried to explain what was happening, but nobody really understood. Governments held emergency meetings. Military leaders activated their defense systems. Religious leaders declared it the end of times. Vexthala opened communication channels to the planet below. Her voice, translated into dozens of human languages, echoed from every radio and television on Earth. "People of Earth, I am Commander Vexthala of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world contains resources that our empire requires. You will surrender all mining rights immediately. In return, we will relocate your species to suitable worlds where you can live peacefully under imperial protection." The response from Earth was swift and unified. For the first time in decades, every nuclear weapon on the planet targeted the same enemy. Missiles launched from submarines, silos, and mobile platforms. Hundreds of warheads streaked toward the alien ships. Vexthala watched the primitive weapons approach with amusement. "Activate defensive screens," she ordered calmly. Blue energy fields surrounded each Zephyrian ship. The nuclear missiles struck the shields and simply vanished, their massive explosions absorbed harmlessly by Imperial technology. Not a single ship suffered even minor damage. "Is that their best effort?" asked the weapons officer. "Apparently so," Vexthala replied. "Begin landing operations. Deploy standard occupation forces. This should be completed within days." But as the first Zephyrian shuttles descended toward Earth's surface, something unexpected happened. Instead of surrendering, humans began fighting back with whatever weapons they had. Soldiers fired bullets at armored aliens, citizens threw rocks and bottles. Police used riot gear against energy weapons. None of it worked. Zephyrian personal shields stopped bullets as easily as they stopped nuclear missiles. Their weapons cut through human armor like paper. Within hours, every organized military on Earth had been defeated or scattered. Yet the humans kept fighting. In New York, Dr. Elena Vasquez watched Zephyrian soldiers march through the streets from her laboratory window. She was a biochemist who had spent her career studying diseases and bacteria. Now she found herself thinking about the aliens differently than everyone else. They breathed Earth's air. They walked on Earth's ground. They touched Earth's surfaces. This meant they could be affected by Earth's microscopic life forms. Elena began collecting samples of everything the aliens had touched. Soil from their landing sites, air from areas where they had removed their helmets, water from puddles their boots had stepped through. She had an idea that might give humanity its first real weapon against the invaders. Meanwhile, Marine Sergeant Marcus Johnson gathered his scattered unit in the ruins of their base. The aliens had destroyed their vehicles and weapons, but Marcus had learned something important during the battle. The Zephyrians fought like they expected easy victories. They used overwhelming force but showed little creativity and tactics. They're not used to enemies that fight back, he told his men. They expect us to run or surrender. When we do something unexpected, they hesitate. His words proved correct during their first guerrilla attack. Marcus led his team in a night raid on an alien supply depot. Instead of attacking directly, they used car bombs, hidden explosives, and sniper fire from multiple directions. The Zephyrian guards had advanced weapons but seemed confused by hit-and-run tactics. The attack succeeded beyond Marcus's hopes. They destroyed valuable equipment and captured alien technology before disappearing into the city ruins. More importantly, they had killed Zephyrian soldiers. The aliens could bleed. They could die. Word of the successful attack spread quickly through hidden communication networks. Across Earth, similar groups began forming. Engineers studied captured alien devices. Scientists like Elena worked on biological weapons. Soldiers like Marcus developed new fighting methods. Commander Vexathala read the first casualty reports with growing concern. Her forces were taking losses they weren't supposed to take. The humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, they seemed to be getting more organized and more dangerous. Commander, we're detecting unusual activity in major population centers, reported her intelligence officer. The humans appear to be coordinating resistance efforts across their entire planet. Impossible, Vexathala said. Our analysis showed they couldn't unify even against an external threat. The analysis may have been incorrect, Commander. These humans are adapting. As her ships continued mining operations, stripping mountains and forests for their precious resources, Vexathala began to understand that this assignment would not be as simple as the Empire had predicted. The humans were proving to be unlike any species the Zephyrians had conquered before. They refused to accept defeat. They learned from every battle. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to become more dangerous the longer the fight continued. What the Empire had seen as weakness, their divided nature and primitive technology, was becoming their strength. United by invasion, they were transforming their entire civilization into something new, something the Empire had never faced before. 6 months had passed since the Zephyrian Empire began harvesting Earth's resources. Massive mining machines now covered 3 continents, their alien technology stripping entire mountain ranges bare in just days. Where forests once stood, only scarred wasteland remained. Rivers ran black with mining waste. The sky above extraction sites glowed with the heat of industrial operations that never stopped. Dr. Elena Vasquez crouched in the ruins of what had once been downtown Chicago, studying samples through a makeshift microscope. Around her, the resistance cell she now led worked quietly in their underground hideout. They had learned to move silently and speak in whispers. The aliens had sensitive hearing equipment that could detect human voices from great distances. "Any progress?" asked Thomas, a former electrical engineer who now served as her second in command. Elena looked up from her microscope with a tired smile. "I think so. The bacteria I've been growing shows promise. It seems to attack their breathing filters specifically." For months, Elena had been developing biological weapons using Earth's own microscopic life. The aliens breathed Earth's air, but they used mechanical filters to clean it first. These filters were designed to remove known toxins and particles, but they weren't built to handle Earth's unique bacteria and viruses. Elena had discovered that certain Earth microorganisms could multiply inside alien filtration systems, causing them to fail completely. When the filters stopped working, the aliens either had to retreat to their ships or risk breathing air that made them sick. We've had 3 successful sabotage operations this week, Thomas reported. Mining Platform 7 went offline yesterday when their atmospheric processors failed. They still haven't figured out why. Across the city, Sergeant Marcus Johnson led his team through abandoned subway tunnels toward their next target. His unit had grown from 12 Marines to over 200 fighters from all branches of the former military. They moved through the underground passages like ghosts, striking at alien positions and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. Marcus had learned to think differently about warfare. The aliens expected humans to fight like the Empire fought, with organized armies, clear battle lines, and conventional tactics. Instead, Marcus used every dirty trick he could think of. Booby traps made from captured alien explosives, sniper attacks from hidden positions, psychological warfare that played on alien fears and confusion. "Target is just ahead," whispered Lieutenant Rodriguez, a former Air Force pilot who now served as Marcus's scout. 12 guards, standard patrol pattern. They've got energy shields but no heavy weapons. Marcus studied the alien supply depot through night vision goggles. The Zephyrians had grown confident over the past months. Their patrols followed predictable routes. Their guards often removed their helmets when they thought they were safe. They had stopped expecting serious resistance. That confidence was about to cost them. "Remember, we hit fast and disappear faster," Marcus told his team. "Take their equipment, but don't try to hold the position. We're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to make them afraid of every shadow." The attack began with a series of small explosions that destroyed the depot's communication equipment. While the guards tried to call for help, Marcus's snipers eliminated the sentries from 3 different directions. The remaining aliens found themselves surrounded by enemies they couldn't see, fighting with weapons they barely understood. When the shooting stopped, 8 Zephyrian soldiers lay dead. The humans had captured valuable alien technology and disappeared back into the tunnels before reinforcements arrived. Marcus's team had suffered no casualties. Similar attacks were happening across the planet. In London, former SAS soldiers had learned to hack alien computer systems. In Moscow, Spetsnaz units were reverse engineering captured weapons. In Tokyo, engineers were building improved versions of alien equipment using human manufacturing techniques. The Resistance was learning and adapting faster than the Empire had thought possible. Commander Vexthala stared at the latest casualty reports with growing alarm. In 6 months of occupation, her forces had lost more soldiers than most Imperial campaigns suffered in years. The primitive humans were killing trained Zephyrian warriors at an impossible rate. "How is this happening?" she demanded from her staff. These creatures barely knew how to leave their own planet. Now they're defeating soldiers with centuries of combat experience. Her intelligence officer, a nervous young Zephyrian named Kethvar, pulled up tactical displays showing human attack patterns. "Commander, they don't fight like any species we've encountered. They use unconventional methods that our training never prepared us for." "Unconventional how?" "They hide explosives in destroyed vehicles knowing our soldiers will investigate. They attack from multiple directions simultaneously, making it impossible to determine their real numbers. They use biological weapons we can't detect until our equipment fails. Most disturbing, they seem to study our tactics and develop countermeasures within days." Vexathala studied the tactical data with increasing concern. Every time her forces adapted to human resistance methods, the humans changed their approach. They were learning from every encounter and sharing that knowledge across their entire planet through hidden communication networks. "What about their technology level?" she asked. "They're reverse engineering our equipment at an alarming rate," reported her chief engineer. "Their versions are crude and inefficient, but they work. Sometimes they work better than our original designs because they're built for different purposes." This was the most troubling development of all. Human engineers were taking Zephyrian technology and modifying it in ways the original designers had never considered. They created weapons that were less powerful but easier to manufacture. They built communication devices that were less sophisticated but harder to detect. They developed vehicles that were slower but more reliable in Earth's harsh conditions. Worse, they were sharing all of these innovations freely among resistance groups worldwide. Dr. Vasquez emerged from her laboratory carrying a metal container filled with specially modified bacteria. Her latest creation was ready for field testing. The microorganisms inside could survive in alien atmospheric processors for weeks, slowly breaking down the filtration systems from the inside. "How many mining platforms can we hit with this batch?" asked Thomas. "At least 6, Elena replied. But that's not the important part. Once we introduce these bacteria into their systems, they'll spread to other equipment through routine maintenance. The aliens will carry our weapons to their own ships without knowing it. This was Elena's greatest innovation. Instead of attacking alien positions directly, she was turning their own logistics against them. Every time they serviced their equipment, they would spread Earth bacteria throughout their fleet. Their advanced cleaning systems weren't designed to handle organisms that evolved specifically to defeat Zephyrian technology. Meanwhile, Marcus was training a new group of recruits in guerrilla warfare tactics. These weren't professional soldiers but ordinary citizens who had lost everything to the alien occupation. Teachers, shopkeepers, students, and retired workers learned to use captured alien weapons and build improvised explosives. The key is unpredictability, Marcus explained to his newest students. They have better weapons and armor, but they think like an empire. They expect organized resistance that follows military doctrine. We give them chaos instead. One of his students, a former accountant named Mary, raised her hand. What if they bring in more soldiers? What if they decide to just kill all of us? Marcus had been asking himself the same question. Intelligence reports suggested that the Empire was considering stronger measures. If the current occupation force couldn't control Earth's population, they might request permission to eliminate the human species entirely. Then we make sure that costs them more than they're willing to pay. Marcus answered. We make every day of occupation expensive. We make every soldier they send here afraid to leave their ships. We turn this planet into a place the Empire doesn't want to fight for. As the months passed, this strategy began to work. Zephyrian soldiers started requesting transfers away from Earth duty. Mining operations slowed as equipment failures increased. Supply convoys required larger and larger military escorts just to move between secured areas. The Empire had expected to harvest Earth's resources quickly and efficiently. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that grew stronger with each battle, learned from every defeat, and refused to accept that superior technology meant inevitable victory. What had begun as a simple extraction operation was becoming something the Zephyrian Empire had never experienced before. A war they might not be able to win. 2 years had passed since the Zephyrian Empire first arrived at Earth. What had begun as a simple resource extraction mission had become something entirely different. The planet below was no longer the divided, primitive world that Imperial scouts had first discovered. It had transformed into something the Empire had never encountered before. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in what had once been the basement of a university research building. Now it served as the primary laboratory for Earth's Biological Warfare Division. Around her, teams of scientists worked with equipment that mixed human ingenuity with captured alien technology. The results would have seemed impossible just 2 years earlier. Status report. Elena said to her assistant, Dr. Park, a former virologist from Seoul who had joined the resistance after his family was killed in the initial invasion. The new strain is ready for deployment, Dr. Park replied, indicating a series of sealed containers. It targets their neural interfaces specifically. When they connect to their ship computers, the bacteria will travel through their cybernetic implants and cause system failures. Elena nodded with satisfaction. Her team had moved far beyond simple equipment sabotage. They were now creating organisms that could attack the aliens themselves through their advanced technology. The Zephyrians had cybernetic enhancements that connected their brains directly to their computers. Elena's bacteria could turn these advantages into weaknesses. How quickly does it spread? She asked. Contact transmission. Once one Zephyrian is infected, anyone who shares computer systems with them will also become infected. Their own network connections become our delivery system. This was the genius of humanity's evolved resistance strategy. Instead of trying to match alien technology directly, they used the Empire's own systems against them. Every advanced feature the Zephyrians relied on became a potential vulnerability that human creativity could exploit. Meanwhile, in the underground city that had grown beneath the ruins of Denver, Lieutenant Jake Morrison worked on humanity's most ambitious project yet. The former aerospace engineer had spent 2 years studying captured Zephyrian spacecraft, learning how their faster-than-light drives functioned. Power couplings are stable, reported his team of volunteer engineers. The fusion reactor is operating within acceptable parameters. Jake looked at their creation with pride and terror. It was ugly compared to sleek Zephyrian designs. Human welding techniques created rough seams where alien manufacturing would have produced smooth curves. Earth materials replaced exotic Imperial alloys wherever possible. But it would fly, and more importantly, it would fight. "Communications check," Jake ordered. "All networks online," came the response from the communications officer, a former NASA technician. "We're connected to resistance cells on every continent. When we launch, everyone will know that humans can reach space again." The spacecraft represented more than just recovered technology. It proved that humanity could adapt alien science to their own purposes and improve upon it. The ship's weapons were crude but effective. Its armor was heavy but strong. Its computers were simple but reliable. Most importantly, it was completely human. Every bolt, wire, and circuit had been manufactured on Earth by human hands using human techniques. The Resistance had learned to build their own versions of Imperial technology. Sergeant Marcus Johnson stood in the command center that coordinated resistance operations across North America. The facility had been carved out of solid rock deep beneath the Appalachian Mountains. Here, former military officers from dozens of countries worked together to plan operations that would have been impossible during peacetime. "Intel update," requested General Patricia Hayes, a former Air Force commander who now led the unified Earth resistance. Marcus pulled up tactical displays showing Zephyrian positions across the continent. "They've consolidated their forces around major mining operations. Smaller outposts have been abandoned due to constant attacks. Their troop morale is at critical levels. Casualties? In the past month, we've eliminated over 300 alien soldiers, while losing only 47 resistance fighters. Our kill ratio continues to improve as we refine our tactics." General Hayes studied the numbers with grim satisfaction. 2 years of constant warfare had transformed human military thinking completely. Earth's forces no longer tried to fight like conventional armies. Instead, they had become something new, a planetary guerrilla force that used every advantage their home world provided. "What about their reinforcement requests?" she asked. "Still being denied by Imperial Command," Marcus replied. "Our intelligence suggests the Empire refuses to believe that a pre-spaceflight species can inflict meaningful casualties on their forces. This was humanity's greatest advantage. The Zephyrian Empire was too proud to admit that primitive humans were winning battles against trained Imperial soldiers. Rather than send more troops, they continued to blame local commanders for their failures. Commander Vexathala read the latest reports from her science division with growing horror. The humans weren't just fighting back anymore. They were evolving. Their resistance methods had become more sophisticated than anything in Imperial military databases. "Explain this to me again," she demanded from her chief scientist. "Commander, the humans have weaponized their planet's biology against us. They've created organisms that specifically target our technology and physiology. These aren't random biological hazards. They're engineered weapons designed to exploit our specific vulnerabilities." Vexathala stared at the data. Human scientists had somehow learned to modify Earth bacteria and viruses in ways that affected Zephyrian equipment and even Zephyrian bodies. They had turned their world's entire ecosystem into a weapon. How is this possible? They barely understood genetics when we arrived. They've been studying our biology using captured medical equipment. They know more about Zephyrian physiology now than most of our own scientists. Furthermore, they're sharing this knowledge across their entire planet through hidden networks we cannot trace. The implications were terrifying. The humans had transformed their entire civilization into a military research project focused on one goal: finding ways to kill Zephyrians. Every university, laboratory, and workshop on the planet was now dedicated to developing new methods of resistance. "What about their manufacturing capabilities?" Vexathala asked. "They're building their own versions of our technology. Crude versions but functional. Their spacecraft designs are particularly concerning. They've taken our faster-than-light drive principles and adapted them to human engineering standards." This was the worst news yet. If humans could build their own spaceships, they would no longer be trapped on their planet. They could potentially take their resistance to other worlds, spreading their unconventional warfare methods throughout the Empire. Jake Morrison climbed into the pilot seat of humanity's first indigenous starship. Around him, his crew of volunteers made final preparations for launch. They knew this might be a one-way mission, but they also knew it was necessary. "All systems green," reported the navigator. "Course laid in for the alien supply depot at Lagrange Point 2. "Understood," Jake replied. Initiate launch sequence. The ship rose through the hidden launch tunnel that had been carved through a mountain. When it emerged into space, every resistance cell on Earth received the same message. Humans were no longer bound to their planet. The attack on the Zephyrian supply depot was swift and devastating. Jake's ship approached using stealth techniques learned from studying alien sensor systems. When the depot's defenses finally detected them, it was too late. Human-built weapons, designed specifically to penetrate Zephyrian shields, tore through the station's defenses. The depot was destroyed, but more importantly, its destruction was broadcast across the Empire's communication networks. For the first time, other conquered species learned that someone was successfully fighting back against Imperial forces. Within days, reports began reaching Zephyrian command of unusual resistance activities on distant worlds. Species that had been conquered decades ago suddenly began showing new forms of defiance. The techniques they used looked suspiciously similar to human resistance methods. Dr. Elena watched the results of her latest biological weapon with professional satisfaction. Across the planet, Zephyrian equipment was failing as Earth bacteria spread through their systems. Mining operations slowed, then stopped completely as atmospheric processors broke down. Alien soldiers became sick when their life support systems were compromised. But Elena was already working on something more ambitious. If humans could reach space, they could carry Earth's biological weapons to other worlds. They could teach other species how to turn their own ecosystems against the Empire. The Zephyrians had wanted Earth's resources. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. A species that refused to accept defeat and had the creativity to turn any disadvantage into a weapon. Humanity was no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory. The Zephyrian High Council chamber fell silent as Admiral Corthan finished reading the casualty reports. The massive crystalline structure that housed the Empire's government had witnessed the planning of countless conquests over the centuries, but never had the Council faced news like this. "These numbers cannot be accurate," declared Councillor Vexmore, her 6 eyes blinking in disbelief. "A single primitive world cannot have caused such losses to the Imperial fleet." Admiral Corthan, commander of the 3rd Imperial Fleet and veteran of dozens of successful conquests, stood before the Council with the bearing of a soldier who had never known defeat. "Until now, the reports are verified, Councillor. In 3 years of occupation, we have lost more ships, equipment, and personnel to this one species than we have lost in the previous century of expansion combined." High Councillor Zeth Karan, ancient leader of the Zephyrian Empire, leaned forward on his throne. His voice carried the authority of someone who had ruled for over 400 years. "Explain to me how creatures that could barely reach their own moon are destroying Imperial vessels." "They learn, High Councillor. Every tactic we use against them, they study and develop countermeasures. Every piece of technology they capture, they reverse engineer and improve. They have transformed their entire civilization into a military force dedicated to one purpose: fighting us." The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Councillors shouted over each other, some demanding explanations, others calling for immediate action. The idea that a pre-spaceflight species could threaten the Empire challenged everything they believed about their own superiority. "Silence," commanded High Councillor Zeth Karan. The chamber immediately fell quiet. "Admiral Corthan, what do you recommend?" "Total extermination of the human species, High Councillor. We strip mine their planet without regard for native life. We turn Earth into a dead world and harvest its resources in peace." On Earth, General Patricia Hayes stood in the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching tactical displays that showed Imperial fleet movements throughout the solar system. Massive new ships had arrived, far larger than anything the humans had seen before. "Intelligence assessment?" she asked her staff. Colonel Martinez, former head of NASA's Deep Space Monitoring Program, pulled up detailed scans of the alien vessels. "These aren't mining ships or occupation forces. This is a full Imperial battle fleet. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy entire cities from orbit. How long before they begin bombardment? Unknown. But our deep space sensors are detecting massive energy buildups throughout their fleet. Whatever they're planning, it's going to happen soon." General Hayes nodded grimly. For 3 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. Every resistance cell, every underground facility, every hidden weapon had been designed with one assumption. Eventually, The Empire would try to wipe them out completely. Signal all units. Execute Plan Omega. Across the planet, resistance fighters emerged from hidden bunkers carrying weapons that 3 years earlier would have seemed like science fiction. Human engineers had spent those years not just copying alien technology, but improving it. The results were crude by Imperial standards, but they worked. Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of the flagship of humanity's makeshift space fleet. Around him, in the hidden asteroid base that served as Earth's secret shipyard, dozens of human-built vessels prepared for launch. They were ugly ships built from salvaged alien components and Earth materials, but they represented something the Empire had never faced before. "All ships report ready," announced Commander Chen, the former space station captain who now served as Jake's second in command. "Weapons are armed and targeting systems are active." "Understood." "Begin deployment." The human fleet emerged from hidden bases throughout the solar system. Ships disguised as asteroids revealed weapon systems. Facilities hidden on the moon launched swarms of attack craft. Stations buried in the rings of Saturn activated massive railguns that fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Admiral Corthan watched the human response with professional interest. His tactical display showed dozens of primitive vessels rising to meet his fleet. Their designs were inefficient and their construction was clearly improvised, but there were many of them. "Curious," he mused to his tactical officer. "They must know they cannot win a direct engagement. Why do they reveal themselves?" "Perhaps desperation, Admiral. They may hope to inflict some damage before we destroy their planet. Begin bombardment of major population centers. Ignore their ships for now. Once we eliminate their ground-based resistance, we can deal with their space forces at leisure." The Imperial fleet opened fire on Earth with weapons designed to crack planets. Massive energy beams lanced down from orbit, targeting the locations where Imperial intelligence believed human leadership was hiding. The beams struck Earth's surface and simply disappeared. "What happened?" demanded Admiral Corthan. "Unknown, Admiral. Our weapons are firing but causing no damage to the surface." Dr. Elena Vasquez watched the alien bombardment from her new laboratory, built deep beneath the Pacific Ocean floor. Around her, the massive shield generators that protected Earth hummed with power. Human engineers had spent 3 years studying captured Zephyrian shield technology, learning how it worked, and then building their own version. "Shield integrity holding at 98%, reported her chief engineer. "Their weapons are powerful, but our shields are designed specifically to counter Imperial energy frequencies." "How long can we maintain this?" "Indefinitely, as long as the geothermal power systems keep running. We're drawing energy directly from Earth's core. They'd have to destroy the planet to break through our defenses. This was humanity's greatest achievement. They had turned their entire world into a fortress, protected by shield systems that the aliens couldn't penetrate. But the shields were only the beginning of their plan. Jake Morrison's ship accelerated toward the Imperial fleet at speeds that should have been impossible for human technology. His vessel's design incorporated principles that Zephyrian engineers had never considered. Instead of trying to match Imperial efficiency, humans had built ships that could exceed Imperial specifications through brute force engineering, weapons. "Range in 30 seconds, announced his gunner. "Fire when ready." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that violated known physics. Imperial sensors detected energy signatures that shouldn't exist, and projectiles moving at velocities that their shields weren't designed to stop. Zephyrian defensive systems, perfected over centuries of conquest, proved useless against weapons that operated on principles the Empire had never encountered. The first Imperial ship to die was Admiral Corthan's flagship. A human-built torpedo, powered by a fusion warhead and guided by adaptive artificial intelligence, punched through the vessel's shields and detonated inside its engine core. The massive warship simply vanished in a flash of nuclear fire. "Impossible," whispered Corthan's tactical officer as he watched his admiral's ship disappear. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our defenses." But they could, because human engineers had spent 3 years learning everything about Imperial technology and then finding ways to defeat it. Every captured device, every studied energy frequency, every analyzed material had been used to create weapons specifically designed to kill Zephyrian ships. Within hours, half the Imperial fleet was destroyed or retreating. The survivors fled to the edge of the solar system, broadcasting desperate messages to Imperial command about weapons that couldn't exist, and tactics that defied all military logic. General Hayes watched the battle from Earth's command center with grim satisfaction. The Empire had finally sent their best ships and most experienced crews to destroy humanity. Instead, they had learned what humans had known for 3 years. Superior technology meant nothing if your enemy understood it better than you did. "Damage report?" she asked. "Minimal losses. Our shields held against orbital bombardment and our space forces performed better than projected. We've captured or destroyed significant Imperial assets. What about their retreat? Our long-range sensors show the surviving ships broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. They're warning the Empire about our capabilities." This was exactly what humanity wanted. For 3 years, they had been preparing not just to survive the Zephyrian invasion, but to carry their fight to the Empire itself. Every battle had been a learning experience. Every captured ship had revealed new secrets. Every dead alien had provided biological samples for Elena's weapons. Now the Empire knew that Earth was no longer a primitive world to be easily conquered. It had become something far more dangerous, a planet full of creative, adaptable, and thoroughly angry humans who had learned to turn alien technology against its creators. The message would spread throughout Imperial space. Humanity was coming. The news of Admiral Corthan's defeat spread through the Zephyrian Empire like wildfire. On distant worlds that had been conquered decades earlier, whispered conversations began in slave quarters and work camps. Species that had accepted Imperial rule as unchangeable fate suddenly began to wonder if resistance was possible. On the mining world of Keth Moran, where the Draxi people had labored for 50 years extracting rare crystals, unusual accidents began happening to Imperial equipment. Machines designed to work flawlessly for centuries suddenly developed mysterious malfunctions. The techniques used looked strikingly similar to reports coming from a distant world called Earth. High Counselor Zethkaran stood in his private chamber, studying intelligence reports that each seemed more impossible than the last. Through the crystal walls, he could see the capital city of the Empire stretching to the horizon. For 4 centuries, he had ruled over hundreds of conquered worlds and billions of subject peoples. None had ever successfully resisted Imperial power. Until now. "The humans have launched ships beyond their solar system," reported Intelligence Director Vashitel, her voice barely concealing her fear. "Our long-range sensors detect at least 12 vessels moving toward Imperial space using faster-than-light drives." 12 ships cannot threaten the Empire," Zethkaran replied, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "High Counselor, these are not ordinary ships. Their design incorporates technologies we don't understand. Their weapons operate on principles that violate our understanding of physics. Our computer models cannot predict their capabilities." This was what truly frightened the Imperial leadership. For centuries, the Empire had maintained control through technological superiority. Their weapons were better, their ships were faster, their shields were stronger. But the humans had somehow learned to build technology that was different rather than inferior. What do our scientists say about their methods? They call it adaptive engineering, High Counselor. Instead of following established principles, the humans modify existing technology to serve new purposes. They combine incompatible systems in ways that shouldn't work but do. They treat the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Earth's first interstellar flagship, watching alien stars grow larger through the reinforced windows. Around her, the converted mining vessel hummed with power from engines that combined human ingenuity with captured Imperial technology. The ship was a monument to human adaptability. Its hull was welded together from salvaged alien materials and Earth steel. Its weapon systems used Zephyrian energy principles powered by human fusion reactors. Its computers ran on hybrid programming that merged Imperial software with human artificial intelligence. It was ugly, loud, and inefficient. It was also absolutely deadly. "Status report," Elena asked Captain Rodriguez, the former Air Force pilot who commanded humanity's first interstellar mission. "All systems nominal. We'll reach the Vecta system in 6 hours. Intelligence suggests it's lightly defended and contains several species that were recently conquered by the Empire." Elena nodded. The Vecta system was perfect for their purposes. The native Vectan people had been enslaved only 20 years ago, which meant they still remembered freedom. More importantly, their biology was compatible with the modified Earth organisms that Elena's team had developed. Biological weapons status? Ready for deployment. We've adapted your bacterial strains to target Zephyrian equipment in the Vecta system specifically. We've also prepared samples that the Vectons can use to create their own versions. This was the true purpose of humanity's interstellar mission. They weren't trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They were teaching other species how to fight back against the Empire using methods the Zephyrians couldn't counter. Jake. Morrison piloted his fighter through the asteroid field at the edge of the Zephyrian home system, his ship's stealth systems hiding him from Imperial sensors. Behind him, 11 other human vessels waited for his signal. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human in history, carrying weapons designed for one specific purpose. Target acquired, Jake whispered into his communication system. Imperial shipyard facility confirmed. Looks like they're building a new fleet. Through his cockpit window, Jake could see the massive construction platforms where the Empire built its warships. Dozens of vessels in various stages of completion floated in the zero-gravity environment, protected by energy shields and defensive platforms. Beginning approach, Jake reported. All units prepare for coordinated strike. The human attack began with the launch of specially designed torpedoes that moved too fast for Imperial sensors to track. Each weapon carried not explosives but biological payloads developed by Elena's team specifically for this target. When they struck the shipyard's life support systems, they released modified Earth bacteria that could survive in artificial environments. Within hours, every ship in the facility would be contaminated with organisms that would slowly but systematically destroy their electronic systems from the inside. Meanwhile, on the planet Kethmoran, the Draxi people received an unexpected gift. Human ships appeared in their system carrying teachers rather than conquerors. Former resistance fighters like Sergeant Marcus Johnson worked with Draxi leaders to share knowledge of guerrilla warfare, sabotage techniques, and weapon construction. The key is patience, Marcus explained to a gathering of Draxi rebels in an abandoned mine shaft. Don't try to fight them directly. Make every day of occupation cost them more than they're willing to pay. Make them afraid of their own shadows. He showed them how to build improvised explosives from mining equipment. He taught them communication methods that Imperial sensors couldn't detect. Most importantly, he gave them something they had lost: hope that resistance was possible. Similar scenes were playing out across Imperial space as human ships reached world after world. Each carried the same message: the Empire could be defeated. The techniques that had worked on Earth could work anywhere, adapted to local conditions and species. High Counselor Zethkaran received the reports with growing horror. Rebellion was spreading across the Empire faster than Imperial forces could respond. Worlds that had been peaceful for decades suddenly erupted in coordinated resistance. Slave species that had never shown defiance began using tactics that looked suspiciously familiar. How many systems are affected? He asked his council. 47 worlds showing active resistance, High Counselor. The pattern is always the same. Human ships arrive, make contact with local populations, share knowledge and weapons, then disappear before our forces can respond. What do our military commanders recommend? Total mobilization of the Imperial fleet, High Counselor. Every ship, every soldier, deployed to contain the rebellion before it spreads further. Zethkaran considered this option with increasing desperation. The Empire had never faced a threat that required total mobilization. Their military had been designed to conquer primitive worlds and maintain control over scattered rebellions, not fight a coordinated uprising across hundreds of systems. Implement full mobilization, he ordered. Destroy any ship that carries human personnel or technology. Execute any subject species caught using their resistance methods. But even as he gave the orders, Zethkaran knew it might be too late. The humans had done something unprecedented. In Imperial history, they had created a rebellion that spread like a virus through the Empire's own communication networks. Dr. Elena stood in the command center of the human base that had been established in the Vecta system, watching reports flow in from across Imperial space. Each message brought news of new rebellions, successful sabotage operations, and Imperial forces retreating from worlds they had controlled for decades. Status update from the Draconian sector, reported her communication officer. Local species have successfully adapted our biological weapons to their environment. 3 Imperial mining facilities have been completely shut down. What about the Kethmoran system? The Draxi rebellion has spread to 12 neighboring worlds. Imperial forces are requesting reinforcements, but Central Command is already stretched too thin. Elena smiled with fierce satisfaction. This was exactly what they had planned. The Empire's greatest strength, its size, had become its greatest weakness. They couldn't be everywhere at once, and every world they lost to rebellion made it harder to maintain control over the others. Any word from the strike team at Zephyrian Prime? Jake's unit reports mission success. The Imperial shipyards are completely contaminated. It will be months before they can build new ships, and even then, they won't be sure if the vessels are safe to use. The Empire had wanted Earth's resources. Instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Humanity had not just survived their invasion. They had learned from it, adapted to it, and turned it into a weapon that was now spreading across the galaxy. What had begun as a simple mining operation had become the Empire's worst nightmare, a species that refused to accept defeat and had the creativity to teach others how to fight back. The Zephyrians had created their own worst enemy by underestimating the power of human ingenuity and the contagious nature of hope. The Empire that had ruled for centuries was discovering that some prey,